And we're live, guys, on a Tuesday. I forgot what day it is.
It's
Tuesday.
on a Tuesday.
Tuesday, right?
Hmm.
Tuesday night, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 Central, where Ashley's located, 8
Hmm.
Eastern Standard Time.
Very good
Shout
with
out to
you.
everyone still up. Um, this is gonna be a real, like, I've actually never done one of these, like, in the live, like, as authentic as we can get it. So Ashley Margot's was a senior remote site monitor,
Mhm.
founder of the AM approach, co-founder of Latino. Thank you for having your background. It's very helpful.
Yeah.
Co-founder of Latinos and Clinical Research Circle, and University of Clinical Research.
Mhm.
Um,
SOS.
SOS conference founder. Okay, she's done being a remote site monitor at a big CRO,
Hmm.
and she's been looking for opportunities, and
Hmm.
she's being very selective about what kind of companies she's going to work for, what kind of roles she's going to do. Actually, someone I've known for 4 years now,
Yeah.
uh, four, maybe five almost.
Yeah.
And I mean, I knew she would be successful when I first met her, but she's definitely got the makings of a generalist. She's one of the most organized people I know, like by far. By it's not even close. She does so much behind the scenes for us at LICR and all the other stuff I just read off. But the industry is changing, and it may not be the worst thing in the world that you're not working at a CRO anymore. I mean, I'm not going to dunk on CROs in this. People know my stance, but
Yeah.
there's other companies out there that are gaining traction and market share, namely the vendors. Viva is the big one. All the e-source companies now. There's so many, like, these tech platforms that are trying to change the game a bit, and for the most part, many of them are making things a little more efficient and at least site friendly. Like the ones that you'll hear me promote on this show and on this channel, if you're listening on the podcast, like those are the ones that are offering site-based solutions. But
Mhm.
actually, someone like, how's it going?
It's going good. So, I mean, obviously, for many reasons, can't necessarily talk in depth as to like the
Yeah.
process and what happened, but um, you know, with everything I'm involved in and been involved in, along with a full time job, I'm very grateful for everything. But sometimes the whole monitor burnout is a real thing. I knew I had an aspect of it, but because of my organization, it never really hit me too hard. But I will say that once it was official that okay, well now you are only doing your side stuff. You are not currently monitoring at the moment. It really kind of sunk in as to how much tension there actually was, how much stress there had actually been built up without realizing it, right? And so through that process, you think about okay, well, natural reflex is like, oh, well, I need to find a job or I need to start working again. But I'm very grateful for this situation because it really gave me the opportunity, even though some parts of it weren't the best feelings, right? To really see about what it is that I wanted, right? Because you say it, many people say it. Once you get your foot in the door and you've just solidified yourself a little bit, like a year or 2 years, obviously the more years you have, the better you are, right? You become a specialist, you become knowing what you're doing. And then as you are externally involved, you can also become a
Mm.
generalist, right? And so, and if you're fortunate enough to have the time and or act on a continuous education while you're doing your job, you have a lot much more to offer as a whole, right? So I can say that given my background, I was able to sit back and not just think about okay, well I just need to apply to jobs. I have the opportunity and the fortunateness to be able to actually say okay, this is what I want. I'm not going to accept this. I'm not going to accept that. Right. I'm going to be doing all this externally for my work, so they need to be comfortable with that one because this is my priority. Two, I want to work for somebody that is not just okay with it, but is also a supporter, of what I'm doing, right? Because if I have somebody that backs
Hmm.
me on what change I'm trying to bring to the industry, effectively outside of work, naturally it's going to affect my company as well. Though when I work in,
And what you're working on is like those things behind you, like they're mainly around diversity. So
Mhm,
Latinos and clinical research, that should be obvious. And then clinical research circle, university. Those are like site centric SOS conference. Site. It's either patient centric from a diversity angle or site centric
mhm,
solutions, which we just came off of a LICR webinar, myself and Ashley, and that's exactly what she's doing. So,
mhm,
but what is it specifically about the burnout? Because I think I see a lot of people in the CRO space. We actually talked to one earlier today. Me and Chris,
mhm,
potential client,
uh-huh,
senior CRA, kind of wants to start a site. And honestly, we have. I'm not even exaggerating. We have like at least one or two of these calls every week with
mhm.
CRAs or somebody from a CRO level that wants to start a site. It's rarely from a sponsor or a tech vendor that are
Yeah,
calling us, right? And it's occasionally it's a CRC that's working at a site, but the main one is like CRA burnt out, want to start a site. So what was it specifically like that got you burnt out? Or and when did you feel like you've kind of outgrown your role, being that you're a generalist, or at least you're
yeah.
striving to be.
So, I had thoughts and feelings that I had already vocalized prior to, this change, for the past, I would say, 6 months. But because I wanted growth, I was ready for growth. With my background, I was moving up every year. There wasn't, there was no hesitation on not moving me, right? Because again, I showcased that through how well I perform and things like that. Um, but I think it's just when it comes to the burnout, it's as you are lifting yourself up and maneuvering upward, right? And just, especially if you're really ambitious, which I will say I'm obviously, because I am doing a lot of things. I'm very ambitious. I like to,
One of the most ambitious. Ashley's also into like stock market. She's always texting me business, economy. Like she's into, it's not just clinical research for her.
it's fun. So yeah, it's kind of information overload, right? And naturally when you get into that hustle mentality, because there's a hustle mentality, and not to say that it's bad, it's not, because it does get people places. And so I just think that as you keep pushing forward, keep moving and moving and moving and moving, and you kind of hit a wall where like your senior level, and you're like, well, I'm a CRA. I see what CTMs go through. I do not want to go through that, because if you think CRAs are burnt out, CTMs are insanely burnt out. That's why
More
there's,
so,
yeah, more so, like times 20.
even though they don't travel.
Yeah, even though they don't travel. Honestly, I
Oh,
think I would equate maybe, like, for me personally, from what I've experienced, CTMs probably have, I would say, 10 to 20% more stress. CRAs are almost right there, but because of the fact of they travel and all the excess stuff that they need to do just because of the travel, right?
hmm.
So, yeah, I don't want to be a CTM. And I enjoy project management, obviously, with everything like right here that I'm doing up here in that little sign right there. I naturally am a project manager. I'm really great at organizing. It's just a second nature skill set that I've had since I was like in high school. So that's easy to me, right? But again, it comes back to, what inspires you? What are you okay with doing? Because obviously not every morning you're going to wake up and be like, I'm going to work because, I'm a project manager. I'm going to work because I'm a CRA. That little flashy, glittery aspect of it doesn't last forever. And it's not bad to
Hmm.
say that, and it's because once you, what I say, fake it till you make it. Once you're there, you're kind of like, well, this is a great
Hmm.
opportunity, but now that I've adjusted, there's really not a whole lot to it other than just keeping on top of it, right? And so I think that the burnout was more.
Was it mundane? Like one of the things that my coordinator, one of the drawbacks of a coordinator, at least early on, is okay, the pay is not as good as at a CRO, but the work life balance, we give our staff as many days off as they want.
Yeah.
And one of the things they recently told me was, I love that every day is different. Like one day we can have three patients on one study, the next day we have just clean up another study, no patients. The next day we have like a monitor, and it's always changing up like the
Mhm.
activity. And I've never worked like I've worked for a CRO like a as a contractor, but a small one. I felt like it was the same thing, like over and over again.
Yeah, it's very mundane, but I think that when it's consistent, you know what to expect. And I know this is different for everybody, but for me, I actually like consistency in that sense because I
Mm.
already know what to expect. I know how to handle that stress level. I know
So
how
you
to.
don't like chaos
Yeah,
necessarily.
I know. I enjoy chaos. What I'm saying though
Uh,
is it's like that wasn't what affected me. I think it became so continuous that it was the new norm. And then until I dropped out, that's like
uh,
I feel like mentally I went through like a withdrawal period, like a
I see.
literal withdrawal period where I was like, I would wait, I would be up, and obviously you have nothing to do, which is great, you can walk around and just like, oh well, gonna relax today. And I would have moments where I would literally like twitch and I'd be like, oh my God, I have to get to my computer, thinking that I had to like get online. And I mean, this was a real thing. Like it would happen probably for 2 weeks. And then after the 2 week period, I finally started to relax. So I could say within the month breakage is when I really actually experienced what it was to be, you know, uh, unemployed relax. I mean, I know that's not the case for everybody, right? Depending on finances and stuff like that. I'm very fortunate. I had the opportunity to take time off, right? And not really feel the burden or pain or anything like that. But it took that long for me to effectively feel relaxation.
What do you think the well, we'll get into that a little bit more. Mina, who's a registered pharmacist, by the way,
Oh,
says, "I wish I was as burnt out as you were, Ashley. Uh, it's always worse for someone, I guess, but she wants to get in, and I think CRA is really good for you, Mina. I think, whew, it's tough. I mean, like maybe try a phase one site where they need pharmacists,
mhm,
and then you can get into like research as a research pharmacist, and then
mhm.
from there you can transition to CRA. Is what my
Yeah,
advice.
well, I definitely will say I'm not bashing on the role at all. Like I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you full honesty that I loved what I did because I was great at it, and it actually took my organizing characteristics and harnessed it and honed it into a whole other level that I would have never experienced if it wasn't for getting into that role, especially within CRO. I appreciate the company that I was with because they in on the side of supporting education and training. They were exponential on that. So, it was just the fact that now knowing what I know, I'm glad that I had that experience. But I now know the actual importance between when people say, life balance over pay. And is that really a thing? And, like I said, my old ambition self of CRA routes would have been like, I mean, hello, yeah, you want to do the job, you want to do a great job, but you also want to get paid well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, having had that experience now, it's just like, okay, the pay is great and it's going to get you places, right? And while you're doing what you love, but the work life balance, honestly, once you've already gone through it and you experience it, there's nothing that I really don't think you can put a price on that, to be quite honest. So right now that I am actively looking, I am being picky. I could easily get picked up right away given my background, but I'm being picky because I know what
Would
now.
you do another CRO?
Uh, you know, I
I
I
go
don't
with the hard question right away.
yeah, I mean, it depends, if
Small CRO,
yeah,
small and
if
medium.
yeah. Oh, small CRO, I probably yes.
They're good.
I
They're good.
yes, small
But the
CRO,
big,
yes.
what about another large CRO like a
The
mega?
big ones, I think what I would probably do, and I'm not probably, I can say probably, I've already done it, is I'm going to, pretty much put my foot down because when you have seniority in your experience and when you see that they need people with experience, you can say, hey, well, if you need me, you need to tailor to me. And so I've spoken to many that are currently in the works right now, and they know exactly what I want, what I expect for my experience, what I need on paper, confirming that this or this is okay, etc. So that's kind of, I would say, the benefit of having that experience, that you can they really need you, they're going to be willing to work with you, right? And
Hmm.
so, and then Dan, you've been very gracious to give me contacts with Robert Goldman, right? So what did he do? He's like,
Dude, I got a post just for him tomorrow. That
yeah,
guy's
and
amazing.
he is amazing. Well, this is how the conversation went. He said, you know what? You have a lot of background. Obviously, you know what you're doing. What do you want? You know how amazing that was to hear that. I was like, I'm finally at that space where now it's about me, right? It's that I can obviously do for
Ah,
you, but what are you going
ah.
to do for me? And so this is now a new space that I'm kind of,
You've
roaming.
earned that. You've earned
Yeah,
that.
and this is a new space that I'm roaming in. And I think if anybody can take from this that's watching or watches in the future is, when you're looking for a new job, don't assume that just asking for more pay is the max that you can go. Like, no, if you go right now on LinkedIn, just LinkedIn alone, and you look at all the roles, they're looking for CRAs like
Right,
crazy,
right.
and especially if you're bilingual. I mean, gosh, there's so many opportunities, right? So, you know, you
Mm.
set your tone when you have your experience, build on your experience, get in there. And then, with somebody that I hold really close to me, he was a really great mentor. He told me, hey, always know your worth. And even if you're with somebody or at a certain place that you're comfortable with, doesn't matter. Continue to put yourself out there, continue to apply, and continue to check what other people are willing to pay and do for you, because you may have a year on you, you may have 2 years on you, doesn't matter. Some people are willing to give you more vacation time and still pay you more, right? So, you can level that stuff out. And
Wh-
um,
While
yeah,
you were there, like, did you know you talked about the hiring shortage? It wasn't just the CRO you were at, the
it's
other one.
everywhere.
But Hamid's asked a good question. Why CROs and sponsors are so reluctant in picking up the CRCs for CRA role?
I think I mean, because CRCs, you know, it comes down to, I think, point of view and perspective. So for example, like at the academy down where I teach the CRA students, right? I also teach the CRC students. I mean, if you're
Thank
interested,
you for that plug.
yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're interested in asking more questions, feel free to reach out to me. But yeah, so when you talk to a CRC, the way that they look at problems and the way that they address problems are, I would say, one direct. Like, you are there in the situation with the patient. This is what you do. This is how you do it. With the CRA, they're in a more audit role, right? They are looking at the processy through the entire, not just you, but what happened before you, right? And how did that get to that point? What processy behind you getting up to the patient having an issue, let's say with the ICF or something like that? What was that interrupt situation that got you to that point to make that official error, right? So it's
Hmm.
it's perspective a lot, and you have to train somebody into that, right? And so, for me, I wasn't a CRC. The reason why I think I got hired was because I was clinical data specialist. I had to audit a lot of laboratory documentation and all of those types of things for public health. And when they interviewed me, or when I got interviewed, it was more on, okay, how how do you look at an issue, right? What's your thought process on that issue, right? Who, what, when, where, why, etc. What is your empathy in approaching the person with the issue, right? Because it's not just about being an auditor; it's also about being a good human person to be able to reach out to the CRC and connect. Because sometimes CRC can be a great person, but they're also worn out and tired. And imagine having a worn out and tired CRA that just flew in super sleepy, having to go through 8 hours or whatever of auditing, and then you dealing with a CRC that is running, headless
Mm.
chicken, busy day, and then you have to come and say, hey, you're doing your job wrong, kind of a thing. Like, you have to be able to come into those mindsets and actively do your job in the best way, right? So it's not
Yeah.
just easy for everybody to do that. And I think, again, perspective is everything. So if you can actively respond to those questions in that manner, you have a higher chance. But it's also obviously going through the first, I guess, barrier of making sure that your resume is accurate, that you're networking good, because you can have a good resume, but how is your description of that job? Is it geared towards aspect of a CRA? Is it geared towards aspect of CRC? Right. And
Chris,
so,
Kristen says all CROs are short on CRAs.
yeah.
Destiny has a good question for you. when interviewing, it's a follow up to your statement. So when interviewing or negotiating for a new role, what's something else that we can ask for other than more pay?
I think so. I also do this with some clients with like negotiation practices. So I there's in many things. I think first and foremost, being aware of your actual worth. Right now, this might sound horrible, but if you coming in with 6 months, you're not necessarily 6 months experience. You're not necessarily in a position to say, okay, well, you can't give me more pay, give me more PTO, or give me more, stock share or something like that. Right? Like they're gonna look at you and say no. It's not mean that you don't ask for it, right? But just also don't have crazy high expectations either and then turn down that opportunity because of your high expectations, right? Is being really mindful of what you come to the table with and how much worth that equates. And obviously you're going to know right away just on the way that they respond in your interview with you how much they like you and what you bring, right? Some of the things you can ask outside of extra pay is stock share, right? Extra PTO. You can even ask for, I've gone as far as asking for, would you cover me at a conference because I value education and I want to go? Or, I've asked for some really weird things, but those are kind of the more general norm ones.
The equity thing, I mean, is that like a real thing at these big CROs that they
What?
were giving stocks
No. So I've never asked for that. I've heard other stories.
from the big CROs?
I
Like stock options or like actual, probably
no,
stock options.
no. I honestly I can't say that to be.
Yeah,
I do
I
not
don't
remember.
know about that. Maybe at the smaller ones, like
Probably. Yeah. Well, yeah. I talked uh, oh my
I
gosh,
wish, I wish.
Robert.
Can you imagine a decentralized CRO owned by the people?
Oh my
Owned
God.
by, or how about this? A decentralized CRO layered on top of a site network. So the
Mhm.
CRO doesn't even exist to really make money. It
Yeah.
exists to make the site network thrive.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Uh,
But no, I do
ho-
think it's more of the sponsor end. Yeah. When I spoke with Robert Goldman, we actually touched on that.
Robert
That was,
Goldman
he's still
is
awesome.
such the man.
He is.
People don't even understand. A sponsor representative that's a site advocate is like, I mean, this is like a unicorn in the space. There's no, it's like Bigfoot. It's like
Mhm.
seeing Bigfoot. Like he's here on LinkedIn and he comes on our lives. I have a post about him tomorrow, but okay, LinkedIn user says, how do you as a CRA see the pattern to help assist the CRC to prevent deviations before they happen?
Yeah. So I mean, that's obviously a mouthful. That can be a whole other
Do you
segment
think
on it.
AI can do this? Can AI do this?
Oh well, I will say I've had a conversation before that if you are a smart CRA, you will do your best to understand how data management and or data monitoring is going to affect your job because there is a
Mm,
lot that AI can do and a lot of bots can do. I'm not saying that they can do everything, well, no, but I do think that there is something to that. And again, being mindful. I mean, I tell you all the
mm,
time, Dan, and every time we came on, I've said after you get your dream job doesn't mean that you stop there. You think
mhm.
about the future because those who are always 5 steps ahead are always needed, always valuable,
But
and
you know
always,
what? There's people that say, "Hey, I'm gonna celebrate that I'm here, and then
yeah,
just be comfortable. I'm comfortable. I'm good."
yeah. Well, I mean, you can. It doesn't mean like you have to be in this like hustle mindset, like I need to be ahead all the time. No, it's just you can be happy with where you're at. You can look around and celebrate that. You can be like mindful, like, hey, I got the opportunity. This is great. It just means that, once a week, once every 2 weeks, take a 30-minute module session, right? Learn on what
Module.
is that amount. Like there's modules out there, there's learning information out there.
Mm.
You know, take a session, 30 minutes and learn about what is this? How does it
Wow.
actually intertwine?
You know the problem with these roles, with these CRA roles, is that I personally don't think AI is gonna replace CRAs at least
Mhm. I do
anytime
think it's
soon.
gonna help. I think it's gonna help a lot.
Yeah,
But I don't, as far as replacing goes, no.
I
But
think CRAs are gonna be more like encouragers of sites. Like Why, what patients do you have? Kind of like our remote site monitors do now on our weekly calls. Like,
Mhm.
have you tried this? Have you tried that? Let's work through this IE criteria. I think that's going to be more of a CRA, and that's kind of related to this question. Like, if you really know what the site's doing, like on a real time basis, and you kind of know from the past, like, okay, this site, I've worked with them for 6 months, and they seem to be kind of risky when it comes to like the ICF, like they don't document the process of consent properly.
That
You
goes
kind of
back
can
to the
prevent that.
process,
Yeah, the
you know?
process, right?
Yeah, so what you ask, the questions you ask, right? So it's just like, again, somebody made a mess up on, specific ICF. So why did you make that mistake? Oh, well, I don't know. I guess I just, this is the one I grabbed and it was the wrong date. Okay, well, why did you just grab it? Do you not have it organized? Well, no, actually, no, I don't have an art. Why don't you have it organized? Like you go further and further and further and further until you see like the root cause, and then you start helping, train and guiding better tactics they can use to avoid those similar scenarios. But like you said, Dan, it's ultimately just getting to know the sites, getting to know their common mistakes, because everybody has common mistakes that they make. And
Hmm.
then once you kind of figure that out, every time you come across a situation, say, hey, well, did you do this? Because last time you made this error. And they'll say, you know what, actually, let me check on that. So
AI can't take this. LinkedIn user says AI can't take over data report due to PHI issues. Um, there's ways they can get around that if they really
yeah,
wanted to. It's
yeah,
easier to solve this issue than to solve the short staff CRA, let's fly them all over the place issue.
yeah,
This
I
one's
agree with
easy.
that.
It's regulators will get involved. I think AI is going to slow down as a whole due to
Hmm.
regulations. Italy already banned ChatGPT. I don't know
Yeah,
if you saw that.
I
A
did
lot.
see that. I love ChatGPT though.
I use it. Well, good
No,
thing we're not in Italy. I use it.
you
I
know,
use it almost every day.
I mean, I love ChatGPT, but I love the applications that are coming from utilizing it. The
Hmm.
applications are like an organizer's absolute dream. Like
Yeah.
I'm coming across so many and I'm just like, I can do so much with my life now that I have all these applications, right?
I
But
just like
anyway,
the logic they have. So like as a site owner, I use it like when there's like complicated inclusion exclusion criteria. We have this one study where patients basically have to wash off of like most drugs they're on.
mhm,
And the patients always ask why, and even our PI doesn't understand the rationale. The medical monitor is kind of hard to get a hold of. So I just put these in Chat GPT like, hey, what's the rationale for getting off of this when you're on this, like this mechanism of, because it's an investigational
mhm,
product, so it's not going to know, but it's, I know the mechanism of action. So I
mhm,
put the mechanism of action like theory, and I ask it theoretically, like, because research is all theory.
mhm.
Theoretically, if someone's on this and they're taking this, like what could happen? And it actually is very helpful at
Super
giving me
thorough.
like, yeah, it's really good, and it helps me give the patients like a logical answer. And I ran this by my PI, and after he read the Chat GPT, he's like, yeah, that makes sense. He's like, at least in theory,
Mhm,
that's theoretical. So it has a lot of purposes.
mhm.
Hamid says Ashley is right about equity stock share Shine by Roche. Uh, Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. They do it, but not at CROs.
Mhm.
I imagine the bot does the admin work, so the CRA focus on the
Yes.
relationship and
Yes,
encouraging it.
that's
Yeah.
a for sure thing. The bots will be, and all or are, already going about helping with admin work, maybe even helping with, processing documentation, overseeing any issues or errors or things like that. Obviously not like on site aspect because you're handling the documentation. I'm talking about whatever gets collected by the site virtually. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's so much. But yeah, I guess going back to that response for the burnout, it's a real thing. Again, I'm not stating anything about the role. I enjoyed the role. I loved it. It's put me in the situation where I am now, where I can actually decide: do I want to be a site director? Do I want to continue
Hmm.
doing quality assurance or compliance for bigger, lower sites? Right? We're working for smaller CROs or big sponsor now, but in a more bigger capacity. I mean, there's so many options. So for those of you that are going into the field, that are looking for this, understand that that is an opportunity option for you, especially if you take advantage of the resources that you have while you're in that role and actually
Hmm.
learning extra while you can. It's huge. But two, those that are already in that space and are like really contemplating what to do, don't underestimate yourself. Don't self sabotage. Or, how somebody told me, they actually came to me and they said, I think you'd be a great site director. And I was just like, that sounds like a really high
Who
level.
told you this besides
Uh,
me?
it was, I guess, okay, shout out to Margaret. Margaret. Uh,
Margaret?
yes, Margaret. I don't want to say her full name because I don't know,
Okay, okay.
but
Shout out to Margaret. I don't know who you are. I
yeah.
don't think.
But she said, it's very common to have what's that word where you think that you are not capable. There's a word for it. It always slips my mind, but
Mm.
where you phantom, it's a phantom feel where you're like, oh, this is not me, kind of a thing, but you're actually at that level. But anyways, that happens where you think I'm just a CRA, I can't do this, can't do that. No, actually, a CRA, especially if you've came from site level beforehand, you have that full 360 view. You have the understanding of how CROs run, the communication from the sponsor to CRO. You understand the expectation, the leveling, and all of that stuff externally. And then on top of that, you understand what the site needs to be doing, right? And so you have a very genuine positioning of knowledge and training that can really expand very, very far. So just being open with yourself about what you're capable of doing, and don't rush into, I just need to get hired right away. Because the minute that you get back into another job that's the same thing, you're going to get caught back into that. If it's something that you're really thinking about considering external to CRA role, take your time or prep for that time that you're going to need to take, meaning financially, right? So I was very fortunate. I was kind of already in the space of, this or that, expecting certain things. And so, I'm always
Imposter
ahead of
syndrome. Thank you,
imposter
Erica.
syndrome. There you go. Thank you, Erica. Thank you. Yes, imposter syndrome. It's a real thing. And I think that for the first, I think 3 weeks, I was just kind of like, I can't apply to anything else. That's really weird. But then when I started reading the job descriptions, I'm like, wow, I do all of
I
this.
don't think there's such a. I mean, imposter syndrome is real because people have it,
Mhm.
but I don't actually think that it's a real thing. Like
Oh,
when
like,
it comes to the employer thinking that you're an imposter. Like
oh, I don't know. Yeah.
other than a fake CRA, like that's
Yeah.
obvious. Like you clearly don't know what you're doing. But
Mhm.
if you have so many transferable skills and you're able to get close to the task, like you're basically a generalist now. Like you did what you had to do to get your wings, and you merged that from your previous role to remote site monitor. Now you're ready to do things at the sponsor level, site level, like you said. Even the tech vendors, for especially the tech vendor, they don't know what the hell they're doing. Nobody, the entire companies are imposter syndrome. So there's a lot of opportunity in this space. Like not everyone has had so much interaction with sites like you. Like you've had, I don't know, just off the top of your head, how many sites have had like conversations with coordinators over various studies? I mean, that's a lot of info you have in your head now.
Yeah, I've a good chunk. And then on top of that, externally from the previous job of everything that we do, I've spoken to sites as well, right? So and then I came from site level private previously before public health. So yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, I definitely have that perspective for sure.
Um, so what's next for you then? Like you know, you said no more big CRO.
hmm
What
I
do you
mean,
consider?
I'm not necessarily putting them out, but I'm going to be very picky about what they need to provide for me if they want me on their team.
What would you have to do to be a big CRO?
Well, one, they'd have to be okay with all the external involvement I have. I do know that, it's very hard for some people, to understand that, oh, well, how can you do so many things? I'm a huge, ever since high school, and I literally mean high school, college up to now,
Right.
I've always been involved in organizations. I've always ran organizations. This is like a thing that I do and I love it. And I already understand that this is probably never ever going to leave me. So this is as much as part of me as having a daily job, right? And so
Mhm.
they have to be open to that. They have to be okay with that. I also
Do you
want.
feel like not imposter syndrome, and maybe there's not a word for this, Do you feel like you have to be super picky? Because I know you. So you like if you commit to someone, you'd like to stick through
Yeah.
like till the end, and
Yeah.
not just be like another stepping stone.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. Like I like consistency, and if there's anything outside of consistency, it's growth within that consistency, right? But I like to situate somewhere, get to know who I'm working with, figure out how they work best, alternate accordingly so that I can work more, better with them. And it takes a while to get to that mode, right, with people. And if you're always switching, you're always changing, you're going to have that extra tension, and that's just a thing that comes with working, right? Unless you're somebody that's just very passive. I'm not passive. I like to execute efficiently, and that's just how I am. And so moving around is not what I like to do. I like to go there, situate myself, and then grow, and then potentially, even if possible, grow internally outside of just the role. I like to be involved in within those organizations. I like to give my voice, be a part of committees. I want to help, right? And especially if I already have external connections or things that I'm doing externally that can assist in their internal growth, I want to be a part of that. I want to
Mm,
help out.
like a
Um,
dream team.
yeah.
Cassandra said the
Mhm.
dream team. And
Hey,
that's
Cassandra.
Ashley's connected. You know, I
Yeah,
think all the stuff
Cassandra's
she's doing
amazing.
is like just adds to her. It could be something that a tech vendor or a sponsor or a site network can utilize. I think employees like it's underrated what the network of the employee can do for the actual employer.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a thing, and obviously, I've never, approached it in that way or manner. I just think that's a kind of a known fact, but it's just I want to be somewhere where the support is full 360, and not just on their end. It's going to come from me too, right? Because if you're harnessing my growth, I want to be there to help with your growth, right? And
Mm,
because I value that, because you're valuing me. And so that's how I work as a professional, and that's what I'm looking for. I don't mind being like, everybody's technically a number at some point, unless you're at, the site level. I don't mind that aspect because business is business and things, growth is growth, whatever. I need to make sure that there's full support, and that matters to me. That matters more, that and then them understanding that I don't want to necessarily travel. If those two things can be met, money kind of follows it, right? Before,
mhm.
obviously, I want to get paid, but now after being in the industry and experiencing the things I've experienced, this is what matters more to me, because money will follow. It always follows, especially if you're giving back to the community and all this stuff. It just comes, right? And if you're giving back to the community, you're learning, all that comes with it. It's just I think figuring out what is the most important to you, and what can make you be the most efficient and happy on days that your usual daily job, is not going to make you happy, right? Because that happens to everybody. So yeah.
I think we could wrap it up, but everybody go connect with Ashley. Her LinkedIn is underneath this video, wherever you're watching, and on the podcast if you're listening. And then if you want to see more of Ashley, I mean, she'll come on our lives because we do
I
SOS
gotta come often.
conference,
I got
CRA Academy, CRC Academy, LIC, Latinos in Clinical Research, uh,
SOS.
SOS, February 2nd in Tucson. So we'll follow your career and see. I'm actually curious too. Like I have a few companies that I think you would do well, but a lot of these tech vendors have unique, and this is it's. I'm happy to hear this as a site owner, but a lot of these tech companies have flipped their thinking to like more site focused, right? And
Mhm,
they you do have the site experience, but your most recent experience at a CRO, so
mhm,
um, it kind of puts you in a situation where you can do like just about anything, but
mhm.
uh, the ones I have in mind want like most recent site experience
Yeah.
because they're tailoring solutions for sites, which that's also going to be very interesting to watch long
Mhm.
term because that's a whole nother podcast we can do just on that.
Yes. For sure. Well, I'm
Anything else
excited.
you want to say or leave
No,
us with?
no, that's everything. Just, I guess you guys connect with me if you're open to connecting, if you have any questions. If you're generally wanting, I know that there was a few questions asked about, negotiation and prepping for interviews and stuff like that. If you are interested in that, I do that. So you can reach out to me if you'd like. But yeah, Dan, I'm excited to see where I go. And obviously, we definitely need to do more of this so that we can keep everybody up to date and see what actually happens.
Yeah, I never followed like a former monitor, you know, got a little bit burnt out. I feel like the DCROs can do a lot more to keep their staff.
Hmm.
That's another podcast as well, is why they don't. Um, but it'll be interesting to follow, you know, to do these follow ups. And I do it all the time, anyways, but for Guru Nation to be able to see it as well.
For sure, for sure.
All
Well, yeah,
right.
you've pretty much
Thank
seen the
you.
whole role. Awesome. Well, thanks, Dan, and thanks everybody.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, everybody, for watching, listening, like, subscribe, comment, share. Talk to you later. Bye bye.